Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. So we've had a few technical difficulties, but this is the third time we are introducing the show, and we have managed to fix these, haven't we, James? Yes, and thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. Can you tell the listeners a bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, so my name's James. James Dearden Bush is my name that I go by. I do holistic healing, various things, mainly focusing on hands-on intuitively guided healing. I do group breathwork sessions as well, like shamanic breathwork, or holotropic, conscious connected, it's kind of the same type. And I create ambient guitar music as well. So I've been a musician for 25 years, and so I create ambient music. And I also have a YouTube channel where I share videos mainly relating to my journey with healing. And I had a really intense Kundalini awakening about 12 years ago. And I share things in relation to that journey that I've been on. And that's a little summary of what I do.
Outstanding. And what got you onto the spiritual path then, James? What were some of the processes you went through to decide this is what I'm going to do? I'm going to be a healer and a teacher.
I almost feel like it wasn't a decision, to be honest. It was life took me that way. I suppose really probably about sometime in 2006, 2007, I really started waking up to what was going on in the world politically, and esoterically as well, and various kind of degrees of control and occult influence that up until that point I wasn't really aware of. And so that starting to understand that kind of piqued my interest with the topics about spirituality, I guess. And I read a book called The Tao of Physics, which is a really great book. And at the time I was quite into physics and things like that. But this book basically it parallels modern physics and Eastern mysticism, and it just blew my mind, because it was just oh right, they actually understood all this stuff that's been discovered now, thousands and thousands of years ago. So that was quite a shift reading that book, and I was reading some other things at the time as well that started to awaken my consciousness, I would say. And that book also it got me interested. It didn't talk about plant medicines at all in that book, but just reading it made me think back to times when I had done psychedelics when I was younger, and it made me think because I'd just done them kind of recreationally when I was a late teen and stuff, but it made me think, oh, maybe there's actually something there. It kind of woke this, which got me to be more interested in psychedelics again. And I went through a couple of years period of doing mushrooms in kind of a sacred way, just for my own spiritual growth. And I had an extremely profound experience at one time on mushrooms where it was a massively initiatory experience. And I won't go into the whole story because it'd probably take up half the podcast, but the crux of it was I met entities in that space. Things happened, and I ended up transforming into different animals. It was a wild experience. I remember the first thing, I was looking down at my hands, and I didn't have hands. I had birds' talons and wings and stuff, and it was shifting through all these animals. And anyway, it ended up settling on a tiger and a lion being, and basically, it was just an incredible experience that totally changed my view on what life was, and it was massively initiatory for me. And then about 7 months after that, synchronicity just absolutely flooded into my life after that experience. It was already quite strong before then, but after that, it just went absolutely crazy in my life. And about 7 months after that, when I was doing like a meditation on self-healing, I'd watched, have you heard of Bruce Lipton?
I've not heard of Bruce now.
Oh, right, okay. So Bruce Lipton does a lot about epigenetics and how our thoughts and beliefs are controlling how our cells express themselves. And it totally shifted my mind, because I'd been suffering from a lot of physical pain. I had a chest infection when I was about 18, and I'd been suffering for a long time. And I watched this presentation, and he was talking about how our beliefs are affecting how literally our DNA expresses itself, like the environment that the cells are in. And so I just had this kind of like total moment of clarity. I was like, why am I still in physical pain? Why is my body still like contorted when every cell in my body has been regenerated? Because practically, as far as I understand it, every cell in our body is like regenerated with like every 7 years.
Yes.
And I was like, why am I still feeling this pain and damage from this injury that occurred like 10 years ago at that point? And I just kind of got hit with it, that it's the emotion and the memory and the reliving of that in your mind that is holding that pain still in you. And so yeah, I had this vision of like my soul or my essence being put into a fresh, brand new body, and that body just quickly contorting into these like pain things.
Yes.
and thing. And so that evening, I remember lying down in bed, and I was just meditating and talking to my cells and just saying that we can heal this. We came into this life for a reason. We don't have to. And I was actually apologizing to my cells and my body and sending it love and just saying, I'm sorry for like all the additional suffering I've caused. Like, because the thing is, when you've got a bad shoulder or back or anything like that, you add to it all the time, because it's like you get frustrated with it, or I was doing. And so I just had this experience of like a blueprint almost coming down over my body, and I felt exactly what it felt like to be completely healed in that moment. And my understanding of that now is that on some level, like I healed myself energetically that night. And then basically I woke up in the middle of the night after that experience, and I could feel like it was like a band of pins and needles had been zapped around my leg. And then I started to feel energy moving up and down inside my leg. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. I've never felt anything like that before. And it was like spiraling around, moving up and down my left leg. And so, yeah, I also was very, very sick. I was like massively sick at that point. Anyway, I went back to bed, and I woke up in the morning, and this energy was still moving in the body. It was quite gentle and quite beautiful, but it was just flowing up through the legs, and I could feel it and moving around. And yeah, so over the next few weeks or week or so, that energy just got stronger and stronger, moving deeper in my body. I started getting what's known as kriyas, which are like these spontaneous movements that this energy will do to your body. And it started getting really strong. So I was working as a fundraiser for Friends of the Earth at the time in Manchester. And the energy was getting so strong that I would have to go into like a toilet in a cafe to allow it to kind of do these moves that it wanted to do with my body. And basically, yeah, this is a really long story, but to kind of cut it.
It's fine. I'm enjoying it.
All right. Okay.
I love the detail you going into. It's great.
Yeah.
Memory.
So it was the energy was like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the energy was building, and basically it got to a point about a week after that initial thing that I said about that kind of healing. And yeah, it was one night, and the energy was just really strong, moving me around while I was lying on the floor. I was sleeping at my friend's house, just lying on the floor, and I was moving into like a very altered state of consciousness. I was seeing spirits in the room. I was seeing like this portal open up, and beings were like coming in through this portal. And the feeling I got at the time was that I'd heard about how when dolphins give birth, like this, all the other dolphins like come around and form this like little, they all sing and kind of watch this birth thing, which I thought was really beautiful. But yeah, and the feeling I got was that these spirits were just coming to watch what was happening. It was really strange. It felt like some of them though were involved in the process that was going on in my body. Like I could see some around me, like yeah, it's because I know you do like psychic surgery, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and one of the it's funny that, because I thought at the time, oh, like these are like psychic surgeons. It was like they were doing some kind of surgery and like moving things and working with this energy in my body. But then I was controlling it as well, because the energy was moving my hands and I was doing stuff that was, it was like I was pulling things out and all this to me at the time that was totally crazy. And I was just like in this, like, what the hell is going on? And anyway, that evening it eventually accumulated where the energy was moving kind of, it was going up my spine, but there were certain areas where it was blocked as well. So it was like diverting in certain places. I was getting some pain where this energy couldn't quite go. It was like water like smashing into rocks is sort of one way to describe it. And anyway, at one point it kind of came out and I felt these energy streams literally move out of my head, like boom, just into my temples. And there was like a big flash in the room. And then I felt which to me at the time like totally blew me away as well, because I felt I'd heard about the 1,000-petaled lotus on the crown chakra, but I literally felt like it opening up in this, in like thousands of tiny little petals and this spiral thing and energy moving out of the top. So I had like a big crown chakra opening that evening, and yeah, then things got really kind of crazy, I suppose, in the weeks and months following that, which I'll briefly outline if you want me to sort of
go into it as much as possible, man. I really like the story and the teachings which are coinciding with you telling the story as well.
So then basically after that I was telling people about this, friends, trying to explain it with words that at the time I didn't really have words for.
They just thought too many narcotics or drugs. That's what I got taught. People said to me.
Right? Yeah. Exactly. Because you're trying to put into language an experience that is, it's just beyond most people's concept of what is even possible. And it was pushing my boundaries of what was possible as well. I think the fact that I did have experience with plant medicines prior to this probably helped, because I had somewhat of a framework it's like I had some reference point, whereas if I hadn't have had that, then maybe I wouldn't have had any reference point. And also, as I sort of touched on earlier, synchronicity was just massively guiding me and sort of telling me that it was okay and leading me. Like, for example, on that evening that I've just spoke about, like when I walked into the room at my friend's house, there was like a big, I think it was either a postcard or a poster, something anyway, of like an Indian yogi sat in lotus with all the chakras and a serpent, and he was sat on a tiger mat, which just totally synced up to the tiger transformation I'd had like a few months before. So it was just, there was all sorts of stuff. But anyway, so after that kind of crown chakra opening that I mentioned, a few days later, I went back home to Manchester at the time, and I was just lying in bed one evening, and I just got absolutely flooded with like total fear and terror. There was fear over what had started to birth in my body, because it was getting stronger and wilder, and it was like, it just felt like this force that my little ego had no control over. And it was starting to be like, oh God, what is happening here? But then also another thing was, I just got flooded with fear of like all these people I'd told about this, and I was thinking, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. All this stuff, and the anxiety and fear just really built up. And at that point, I felt this energy in my body. It kind of drained out it was like going down, and then I felt these spiraling kind of vortex energies move down, and I literally felt it. It was probably about an inch below where my physical spine was. I felt the energy kind of going there, and it kind of wrapped around itself, and then boom, and then everything was totally off. The whole energy had like shut down. This energy that had been going on for a week or so. And so I was like, yeah, I was kind of freaked out. I felt like my fear had aborted this healing process that had started. That was my intuition at the time.
Yeah.
So I felt quite down about that, because it was like, oh, I'm not, yeah, I don't know. So basically, then for the following week, I was just meditating every evening, just basically just trying to reconnect with that space that I'd got to start the healing. And it's a bit of a vague memory, this, but I remember one evening just really connecting and just saying to source or spirit or whatever, however you want to refer to it, if this is my path, like I'm ready to walk it, I'm ready. And I was like just really putting this out, and then yeah, it just reawoke. That energy did like up through my body again, and it's never stopped since then. And that was 12 years ago. And so basically what happened following on was over the sort of next month or so, this energy just got stronger and stronger and stronger. And it started to become really painful in a lot of places because, as I sort of touched on earlier, there was so many blockages in my body. And because I had bad posture as well from things that went on when I was 18, there were these places where the energy just couldn't go. And it was like hitting into these big, it felt like my whole inner body was an ocean with these powerful currents, but then there were big rocks in a lot of places where this energy just couldn't flow. And it would build pressure. And so it started to get more and more painful. And also what was going on was all this emotional stuff, memories, things from childhood were just like coming up to be faced. And it was like, there was no control over this. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go and tap into my childhood trauma at the age of whatever. It was just like, boom, like face this. And often it'd be like a visionary accompaniment as well. I'd like see the scene, and I think one thing that was going on is, from my perspective, all emotion, your trauma is stored in the physical body, and memories stored in the physical body, and this energy was coming in and clearing that. And so there is a reflection, like the mind, the mental, the spiritual, it's all a reflection, but it was releasing these knots in the body, and then that was bringing this thing up for the mind to kind of integrate. One thing I learned during that as well is there'd be these core memories, these core wounds that it would go to. And as that came up and I was sort of facing it and reliving it in some way, then I would it was showing me how it's like one thing had be healed, let's say, and then it was like, it showed me like all this string of other more minor issues in my life that have been, it was like pulling this thread out, and once the thing had gone, it like pulled these other ones out, if you know what I'm saying.
Never ending process. Yeah. I've done, I'm healed. No, you're not.
Yeah. So yeah, that kind of stuff was starting to go on. I was getting like these spiraling, drilling vortex feelings in my body, head pressure, extreme head pressure. And so much was coming up to be cleared in these early times that it just became completely overwhelming to me. I became massively fatigued. I was in a lot of pain, and it just got worse and worse. And my physical health basically collapsed quite rapidly over about a 2-month period. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't need to go into all the details of this, but basically, I spent about 2 to 3 years being practically bedbound. It was like get up, shuffle around the house a little bit, a few hours in bed in the afternoon, get up a little bit, eat, go back to bed. And that was my life for 3 years while this energy was just going absolutely crazily through my body. It's unexplainable, really, the power of that energy, and what it feels like. When I did a YouTube video on this, I shared at the end of it there's a picture, a painting by Alex Gray called The Journey of the Wounded Healer. I don't know if you're familiar with that picture, but if anyone wants to look it up.
Which one is it? I probably will recognize it when it is it the I'm trying to think.
It's called Journey of the Wounded Healer. It's like it's a 3-section piece. But the middle section, I mean, that kind of sums up better than I can put into words in a way. But yeah, I mean, the symptoms were wild and varied. It was like electricity all through the body, being burned, cold. There were times when it felt like I had this cap around my head that was just constantly getting tightened and tightened and tightened. No, it's not that one.
Is it not that one there?
No. Journey of the Wounded Healer, it's called.
There's quite a few when I've typed down. You have to say that one. Alex Gray, I love Alex Gray stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. He taps into a really beautiful space. Yeah. So yeah, it was a massive initiatory healing crisis by spirit, really. And I was having a lot of altered states of consciousness. I had during that period as well, when I was bedbound, I had like literally thousands of lucid dreams. It was like every night when I was going to sleep, it was like lucid dream into lucid dream. And I did a lot of healing work in that lucid dream space as well. And that was quite beautiful, actually, because it was a bit of an escape for me, because my physical, actual life was, to put it bluntly, it was hell at that point. It was absolute hell. 24 hours a day agony, total fatigue, and so that was very, very difficult. And because my physical health had deteriorated so much, and then spending time bedbound, once it started easing off a little bit and the energy was becoming more integrated in my body, and I'd cleared a lot of things that I needed cleared, then there was a journey of rebuilding my strength. So it'd be like I was literally going for like one little walk a week where I could just shuffle across to the park and do a little lap around it, and then go back and just building over many years with this process still going on. And one of the main things that really helped me, if anybody listens to this who's kind of going through an experience similar to that, was creating space every day to move with the energy. So I was just, for about 6 years, I would say, up until about 2 years ago, I spent like 3 hours a day just letting the energy move me the way it wanted to, and it would be all sorts of wild stuff. Again, I do actually have a video on YouTube showing some of these kriyas if anyone's interested to see that. It's quite strange to watch, but it moves the body in very strange ways, and it's literally, this process has literally healing, and from my opinion, my perspective on it, is literally healing the body on a cellular level. It's realigned my posture. It's cleared all sorts of pain that I had in various areas, damaged tissue. This energy like goes into every, it's like full spectrum healing on all levels. And I'm not, I've not completed this process, and maybe there is no completion. It might be like just a continuing journey, but I've been through a hell of a lot with it. So yeah. So that's kind of what got me, that initiation and that experience is what has led me to more recently, last year or two, be stepping out into, just trying to, I don't consider it like healing others. I think it's like helping facilitate their inner healing, so as a healer, I think we're helping people facilitate their own healing.
I heal you. I am the one who healed you. That ego, it separated the ego from the truth of it. And what was that? What was that stage? So when you were in that low point and you had, because a lot of people go through this, and classic hermit, where you were, it's just being in pain, getting yourself up to do certain things. What kind of got you out of that, James, where you were right? What gave you inspiration to then move on to the next? I know you were doing that process of moving the energy and feeling what it does, but was there a specific time or an experience where you thought, right, I need to get out this house, I need to start going, I need to move forward and start building myself up again?
I'm not sure if there's like a specific thing that I can pinpoint. It was more just like a gradual climb up almost. I've viewed it metaphorically like once as like being in a massive desert and falling down this big crevice into the desert and like climbing out of that crevice and then getting up and then seeing, oh, there's a 50-mile desert as well to walk through, when it was a bit easier. But I guess it was just getting to that point where I felt I could do it. I mean, it's almost as simple as that, really. And one thing I think that also helped was, so before the Kundalini awakening, in the years before that, since I was about 16, I was pretty much obsessed with being like a successful musician. I was in a band, and it was like mega focus of mine in my life. But during that period with the initiation and going through all that, I couldn't even pick up a guitar. I physically couldn't even play guitar. It was too painful to even hold it or sit up or anything like that. And sort of be kind of doing those kind of motions. So once I started to be able to do that and music started to come back into my life, I think that helped, because I spent a year at least just putting together an album, which was my attempt to express that journey in musical form, and I think that was very therapeutic for me. It was kind of, and also like somewhat power reclaiming, because it was something in my life prior to that gave me a certain sense of power in the world, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I did experience this thing after this massive hermit phase, and I kind of referred to it maybe as like reintegration of my past self. So everything had been completely annihilated, but then there were these, what from my past is worth bringing back, but it was coming back in a more integrated, healed way. So music was coming back in a way that I was much more, I don't want to sound like pretentious, but it felt like the music, I was channeling the music rather than striving to kind of, it was much more getting out of the way and just allowing this flow to come through.
Yes, the creative flow.
Much less egoic control over it. Like the songs that were coming through, they're like a being to me, and I'm like, where does this being want to evolve? And just a very different relationship to how I write music before. The band I was in prior was somewhat like Rage Against the Machine, and the music I do now is like this beautiful, delicate ambient. So I think that was like a big step up for me, having this album to sort of put out into the world. And also a good friend of mine was involved with, and I was involved from the start, but setting up a community centre near where I live, like a big healing centre. So that was almost, it was like, it was perfect, because at the time I was coming out of this and sort of ready to start sharing my, the things I'd learned and sharing that kind of energy and helping others heal. This building and this whole community was built, which really helped me to step in and learn about holding space and ceremony, and I've got a healing space, a room there as well that I work out of and things. So it was like, these things just conversed. And
what place is this called? Is this the community place?
It's called,
yeah,
Centered Community. It's in Sorby Bridge, near where I live. Yes, it's a big 3-floor healing centre. There's float tanks and infrared sauna, big yoga studio, and all sorts of stuff in there. So.
Do you go in the float tank at all?
I do, yeah. I've been in quite a few times.
Yes, I've got my appointment at 12 today. I live on the road to Red Main Lodge with a float as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, big bet.
And so moving on to the journey more, So when you went into, so you do energy healing as well, what was some of the integration and process you went through to become a grounded healer as well? And how are the healing sessions going, and what do they teach you as an individual when you do those healing sessions?
Yeah. So I feel like in terms of being grounded to do, yeah, I feel like my journey grounded me as well, because I'm coming out of the other side of it. There was just so much time, like spending 3 hours a day with your body for like 6 years or something really, really brings you into your body, you know, like, and very intimately knowing your body and being able to be energetically grounded in it. Because yeah, we have these experiences where we're out there and touching these other realms and things, but it also brought me back down here, which I think is very important for doing healing with other people. Even just for actually listening to people, I find like my feel when I've got someone in the room, it's like I don't really know how to explain it, but I can be grounded enough in the body that it almost fills the room, and it's like that presence that you can cultivate holds a space. And so sorry, what was the other thing you were asking?
So what have you learned from the times of you healing people as well? Because I know as a
yeah. So since I've actually been doing it, yeah. So I've learned a few things. I mean, I've learned that this is almost a bit of a negative point in a sense, maybe, but I've learned that people need to be ready to
yes.
heal. You know?
Yes, I do. And that's one of the main things I've always said was 85% of people who come to see me aren't ready to really heal themselves. And they just want to come in for a slap bam, thank you, man moment and think that you're going to take all of the problems away. But then my teacher, Andrew Bartis, a great word I always remember what she said was, healing's not an event, it's a process. And a lot of people think healing is one event. They come and do that healing and they go away and that's it. But it's a continue on process of self-work, self-nurturing, self-healing. And it's great healing those people, but I completely that's a huge thing what I've learned throughout the years as well. Go ahead, we've continued on what you say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm totally feeling that when you're saying it, like, yeah. Yeah, because so I've also learned that one of the ways it's made me step up more, I think, is in knowing how much to push someone. I feel like there's this line between, so for example, like sometimes in the healing I do, basically one of the main things I do is I call it energy flow healing. It's essentially intuitively guided hands-on healing, but I will do some pressure point things in there, just whatever spirit guides me to do basically in that session. But often one thing I really learned on my journey with doing all the kriyas and all the movements in my body. Oh,
we just had a freeze and I was just starting up again.
Yeah, we're back on.
Yes, all good. Go ahead. Yeah.
Is my screen on because it's showing as blank on here?
Yeah, it went completely blank. So I stopped the video and tried to restart.
Oh, right, okay.
We've got all sorts of unseen things trying to stop us from engaging today. So I'll stop the video, James, and if then ask to start video again, and hopefully it'll pop back on. And it's not come on. So go ahead anyway. We could hear you. Really good.
Yeah. So is my video working now then?
No, for some reason it's not.
All right. Let me just I'll stop it on my end and then one second.
Thank you. So we had an audio difficulty and now it's become the video difficulty.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there.
But there we go. It's fine, brother. We'll keep going. I can hear you just well. Yeah, continue on.
Okay, so Oh yes, I was saying about that balance between oh yeah, so where yeah okay, I've got my thread now. Yeah, one of the things I've learned is that practically everywhere there is trauma or tension or pain in the body. Can you hear me all right? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
All right, because your video's frozen as well, but okay.
Is it?
So practically,
And we can hear. I'm sure I can hear you, and you can hear me. So yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure the sounds are.
So practically anywhere in the physical body that there is this pain or trapped emotion or anything like that, I've found that there is a sound there as well. There's like a sound that wants to come out with that. I kind of view the throat chakra, it's like some kind of, it's like an alchemical engine in a certain way. Like, you can change things literally through words. You can change reality and how people perceive things. But also this trapped energy, this trauma or whatever it is in the body has a sound. And so one of the things I'm often doing for people is I'll be touching them in a certain place and I'll feel, okay, there's some sound that wants to come out here. Like it might be a scream, it might be anything really. It could be any sort of sound. So that's the dynamic, and people are not that comfortable with doing that often. So yeah, that's another thing I've learned, of like finding the balance of where to push people and where to just, I think that's something I'm still working with, because how much to push people, because at the end of the day it's their healing journey. And yeah, I don't that's something I'm working with and learning.
And that's it, James, it's that fine line between stepping on someone's journey and helping them, and realizing that we can't step on others' journey. And if someone does come for a healing session with us, that space is open of the equal co-creation where you come together and you can go into some sort of healing. But there's that fine line, isn't there? And I've had this from my own experience, where I've tried to help family members, I've tried to help people, and I've tried to push them a little bit, not too much, but it's just basically just been thrown back right at me.
Yeah.
And it was a huge lesson. I kept going back to this lesson until the point I got where I'm only going to give my time and energy to people who've come for sessions, come to have that value for exchange, come to listen, have the respect. But regarding then, there's giving your time and energy, but there's only so much you can do for that person. They will have to then make that choice for themselves and actually do that work, because some of the things you say to a client or you recommend, sometimes they just don't really listen to what you're saying. And that's just the nature of healing, isn't it? There's so many different dynamics and variables.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's true. And you've got to be just at peace with that. And I think the other thing is as well is understanding, and I guess we're kind of touching on this, but when you've opened up yourself in this way, you tend to get like lots of insights and kind of downloads, but it's not always right to tell someone that, like,
Yes, I love this. Yes.
Go ahead. Like, when should I say that? And so you've got to learn to discern that as well, of like, just because I'm getting this intuition doesn't mean that person might not be ready for it at all. So that's a real to be honest, I feel like I'm actually really quite good at that, but it is something as well where there's a couple of times where I've noticed myself and it's like, nah, you shouldn't have really said that. So yeah, that's another skill.
And going into the breathwork side of the healing,
but yeah, touching on what you're saying about family. Yeah,
go ahead, mate. It just broke up a little bit, but go ahead about the family.
And friends. Sorry. Yeah, I was just it just made me think of it's quite harsh, I guess, in the Bible. Don't throw pearl before swine. Because it's like we just trample on them and
And so what I really like about the energy work you're doing as well, one of the main things for me, what's helped me through a lot of stuff in my life from years of doing it, is breath work itself. And I like how you're incorporating that breath work into the energy work as well. Do you want to go into a little bit about breath work and kind of the corresponding you doing? I think you do like facilitate groups, don't you, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yes, so basically I came into that a couple of years ago, and I was going through a really tough time. It was kind of when I was stepping back out into the world, but I had a certain experience which I won't go into in this podcast, but I had an experience that was really difficult for me, and I just got guided to go to a breathwork. It was like two different people that week said that I should go, and then I got an email saying something about breathwork, and I just thought, right, I'm going to go. It was going on at the community centre that I'm part of. There was some people holding breathwork journeys there at the time, and I'd put it off because I was a little bit concerned that with my process with the energy, that it might be a bit too much, and I didn't want to be like going absolutely crazy in the room, and there was a bit of fear of how wild am I, I'll be like flying around the room, spinning my arms everywhere and all this stuff. But circumstances and synchronicity kind of pushed me to go. So I was like, okay. And I was just in a very tough emotional place at that point. And I just went, and it was just huge for me. It really helped shift a lot of that emotional stuff that was going on for me at the time. It was energetically intense for me because it did really ramp up the energy. I think the second time I went, I was literally just like, the energy was so much, I had to like stagger outside and like stand on some dirt outside just to kind of ground myself down. It was such a powerful experience. I spent like about 15 minutes, I think, after one of the early sessions I had as well, just crying. Just these huge releases. So I just intimately got to understand the power of that type of breathing for shifting this energy, an emotion that is stored in the physical body. And it also, what was interesting to me about it as well, watching other people do that breathing, I recognized that it was mimicking, or I don't know if mimicking is the right word, but some of the experiences in that were similar to what I'd gone through with the Kundalini journey. It was like people sort of having hand movements and energetic sensations and screaming and shouting, because another thing with all that time doing the Kriyas was there was a lot of release in that way as well. So I just immediately saw the power of it, and I went to a lot of those breathworks, and situations happened where the people who were holding those breathworks left, and basically it just felt like, for me, it was just like, okay, well, I'll take this on, because I'd got so much out of it, and I felt like I had an understanding to be able to hold that space because of the amount of that kind of trauma release that I'd been through in my own life. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Outstanding, brother. And I'll definitely come over at some point to one of those. I'd love to experience one.
That'd be great. I was just going to say as well, I have just uploaded a video to YouTube of one of the breathwork journeys. I filmed one earlier this year, so if anyone wants to get,
I'll put your link for the YouTube channel just under this, bro, on the description.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah,
brilliant. And it is like, I think that breath work is one of the greatest things, because I do the breath work, I do psychic surgery training, and part of it, it's got many different parts, but breathing is one of the main important parts as well. Even with energy work, doing energy healing, making sure your capacity to breathe is really good, because the amount of people who do energy healing and they've got high blood pressure, even when they're doing Reiki sessions, it's phenomenal. And that breathing process helps you visualize, see the aura better, makes you more of a trained, more trust with yourself, more trust with the client. and it really is life-changing for me. It helped me in social situations so much the last few years ago, when at times I had anxiety, and I was like, right, where's this anxiety come? I need to make sure I'm more grounded when I'm doing my workshops. So before I do like a ritual where I'm doing deep breath work before, so I go into the state of feeling good and feeling happy. It is life-changing, James. It really is, that breathing, breath work and the breathing techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's beautiful to hear as well. I definitely think it's very important to do our own little rituals before we hold space for other people. Definitely, you've got to get in touch with spirit and ground yourself before you do anything. Yeah, yes. Like that.
And that's it, about being in the body and knowing we're here to experience being in the body, and that capacity to breathing makes you more in the body, and that kind of dopamine release. It's phenomenal. It just reminds me then, James, you sort of speaking about this, is I highly recommend doing it in flotation tanks. You know, right. before you go into it, I do probably about 20 minutes of just breathing while I'm in the flow, and it just completely changes it as well.
Right. Yeah. I've not actually tried that, so that's
really, really crazy shit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You could just hear me in the flow. Darren, the guy who has like 30 miles away, breathing in the tank.
Yeah.
So what's you going forward for before we close the show, James?
Yeah,
I'd love to have you on again next year at some point, because it's really incredible, and I really, if I'm being brutally honest and truthful here, in the healing communities and places I go to, you'd probably find about 5%, 10% are men, and it is great to see you in your power doing what you're doing, and you're inspiring in that way. And it's nice to see that, because when I have workshops, they'll say there's 8 or 9 ladies and there'll be one man there, and to see more men coming in and owning their own stuff, being vulnerable, it's just inspiring to see.
Oh, thank you very much, brother. Thank you.
And what have you got coming up then in the future for like events and stuff going on with you?
Okay, so well, I'll just say this, because so I'm currently doing a 12-month shamanic practitioner training course as well. So that's kind of where a lot of my focus is in terms of where I'm developing my skills, I guess, or tool set as a healer. So I'll be incorporating a lot more of that into my healing practices, I think, as I go forward. In terms of actual events, I do the breath works. I do every 2 weeks at the moment. I do those at Centered Community in Sorby Bridge, and I'm also doing I'm not sure what the date is yet. I think it's towards the end of September. I'm doing there's a 6-hour. We did one of these recently with there's a couple called Paul and Kaylee. They do cacao ceremonies, so we're doing like a 6-hour cacao kirtan, and then finishing that off with a breathwork journey. So that's towards the end of September, and the last one we did was just absolutely amazing, and we got incredible feedback from it. So yeah, we'll be doing that again soon. Yeah.
Brilliant. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother, and I appreciate your time, and it's been real fun.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. And it's awesome to meet you, and appreciate you as well for everything that you're doing. Thank you for having me. It's been awesome. Yeah. And
I look forward to meeting you in person at some point in the next few months. I'll pop over and have a session or come to one of your events.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, great.
Brilliant. Thank you, brother, and thank you everyone for watching the show. I'll be back next week, and I think I'm back with Laura, Massey, and Matty, and we'll be with the great Lily Hayes as well. And something to look forward to at the start of next month, we have the great galactic historian Andrew Bartis on the show. So thank you again, James. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Dale. Cheers.
Thanks, brother.